Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Thoughts on these Doctor Who episodes? The Caretaker? Pretty average. Smith and Jones, I mentioned before, really underrated. I actually really like that one. Cold Blood and the Hungry Earth. I really like those stories, actually. I don't think it's the best one that Chibnall's done, but it's a pretty decent episode in Series 5. Well, story in Series 5. A Town Called Mercy. I don't know about that one. I really don't know. It's one that sometimes I think, oh, maybe I should rewatch that. And sometimes I'll watch it and I'll think, oh yeah, this is actually pretty good. Other times I'm just like, I can't be arsed. Power of Three, I think, is conceptually a very good story. And for the most part, it is a very good story. The ending is too rushed and it ruins it though. Robots of Death. Absolutely fantastic story. I love the Robots of Death. The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Again, a very good Doctor Who story. Quite underrated, actually. What's your favourite regeneration story, favourite regeneration scene, and favourite post-regeneration story? In terms of favourite regeneration story, it's got to be the Caves of Androzani, because that is just brilliant. It is one of the best Doctor Who stories ever, period. In terms of favourite scene, I really like Time of the Doctor. I think that is a beautifully written scene. And in terms of post-regeneration story, it's either Spearhead from Space or The 11th Hour. Two cracking stories. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Don't actually know. By the way, just so everyone knows, that was one take. I'm going to leave in the raw footage from the last question just so I can prove it. What did you not like about Class? Pretty much fucking everything. Nah, I think the main thing was that it was advertised as a spin-off to Doctor Who, but it had no right to be, so already it's coming at you from the wrong thing, because the location, that's not good enough. That's not justifying a spin-off. Something that appeared in a few episodes of Doctor Who. None of the characters appeared previously in Doctor Who. If they had done, and they set up the story that they tell you in the first episode about how the Doctor saved them and their planet and then dropped them at the school, maybe I would have gone into it a bit more excited and think, oh, okay, so I see where this is going. But I found the stories really boring, the characters really weren't memorable, and I thought a lot of them were just token characters. They were just generic as fuck. You've got the older one who's miserable but knows it all. You've got the gay one. You've got the socially awkward teenage girl. You've got the sporty one. You've got the clever one. Like, none of these characters were interesting in their own right. They were just a thing. I didn't like that. It was just a total and utter waste of time, and I think the arrogance of the cast as well, talking in interviews before it came out, all the fans. You don't have any fucking fans yet. Like I say, I think it just came at me wrong, but then you just watch the actual product and you just think, this is crap. Do you think Doctor Who has run out of steam and will get cancelled soon? More than likely, yes. I think it definitely needs a break anyway. I think it has needed a break for a long time anyway. I can't think of the last time that we had a genuinely great Doctor Who series from front to back. I just want that consistency back, you know, where week in, week out, you know you are getting a great story. And even if you get a story that isn't as good, it's still enjoyable and it's still watchable. What are your opinion on these classic Doctor Who stories? The Keys of Marinus? A good story. A bit forgettable though. The Mind Robber. A brilliant story. I absolutely adore The Mind Robber. A lot of people seem to not like it, but I think it's a really fun one. Colony in Space is a really forgettable one for me. It's decent when you're watching it, but it's not one that I'd actively run back and watch again. The Peladon stories, I think Curse of Peladon is overrated. It's a good story, but it's not as good as people make it out to be. And I think The Monster of Peladon is not a very good story whatsoever. Honestly believe it's one of Pertwee's weakest. Invasion of the Dinosaurs. This is a guilty pleasure one for me. I actually really like Invasion of the Dinosaurs. The dinosaurs themselves, yes, they look shit, but the story itself is very well written and it's very enjoyable. Brain of Morbius. I recently did a review of that on Patreon. However, what I will say is it's a good story, but another overrated one. In terms of Tom's stories, I wouldn't rate it that highly. The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, I think I just said a few minutes ago, it's a very good story and it's very underrated. Rank these following shapeshifters from worst to best. The Zygons, the Krillitanes, and the Slitheen. So I would say the Krillitanes, then the Slitheen, then the Zygons. From worst to best. You've been cast as the next Doctor. Your episodes will air soon. The object to your right will be your sonic device. What is it? It's actually a sonic screwdriver. If you were to write an episode of Doctor Who, what would it be like? I don't know. Like I mentioned before, I do have ideas and I do have different concepts that I've got. So it all depends on which one you're talking about. Like I say, I'm thinking about logistics of doing some sort of fan film or short film or whatever. So we'll just have to see. Like I say, that I've got ideas. I'd want to make it more horror focused, I think. Not too much, but Doctor Who needs to be that show where you hide behind the sofa. What's your favourite speech from Modern Who? Mine is the Zygon two-parter speech and the Rose speech where Eccleston says about the Earth turning. Do you know what? If I'm totally honest with you, mine too. I think those two are brilliant. How are you? I'm very good, thank you. Hope you're good too. Have you played Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic? I don't think I have, but I definitely want to. I'm not that much of a gamer. I really wish I was more of one, but I don't really have the time to play that many games. What do you make of the recent trend to remake / reimagine old cartoons? Fun for a new generation or ruining nostalgia with a lazy cash grab? I honestly think it's a mix of both. Sometimes I think they work, sometimes it's obvious that they've put no effort into it whatsoever, and it is literally just like, hey, you used to watch this as a kid, check it out. It depends on what sort of cartoon you mean as well, because, and for what demographic, because really young children are watching the new versions of Thomas the Tank Engine and Bob the Builder and stuff like that, and I've got to admit, having seen bits and pieces of them, they're fucking terrible. Considering that I have gone back and rewatched like episodes of Bob the Builder and Thomas, for example. Why? Because I was bored. But the thing is, they're still great. It's not even necessarily a nostalgia thing. Like, they are genuinely still really, really good. So to see the modern incarnation of them so dumbed down is awful. But obviously they've remade stuff like the Powerpuff Girls and whatnot recently. I think things like that are fine from what I've seen. And I don't tend to watch those cartoons anymore anyway, so I suppose it doesn't really affect me, but it is kind of a mix of both in my opinion. Fun for a new generation, I suppose, and I suppose also a lazy cash grab. Are you a Trekkie? Honestly, no. I've never really been a fan of Star Trek. What would you like to see in Series 12 of Doctor Who? Some good fucking stories and consistency, but I honestly don't think we'll get that, and I'm not asked, so I probably won't be watching either way. Which do you like more, Marvel or DC? If I'm being totally honest with you, I really like both equally. I know it's a cop-out answer, but I think both have their strengths and both have their weaknesses, and both are great at what they do. I'm talking in general, by the way, not just movies or just comic books or anything like that. I'm talking overall. What films are you looking forward to seeing this year? Avengers Endgame, that's all I'm excited for. I cannot wait for it. Your favourite Who outtake? There is a brilliant one with Tom Baker, where K9 says insufficient data and Tom Baker just replies with, yes, well, you never fucking know the answer when it's necessary, or something like that. It's just so funny. So took another break in filming, now we're back. Which Doctor would be the best to 1. Party with? Probably Matt Smith. 2. Get fashion advice from? I suppose Matt Smith again, because he's pretty cool looking. Maybe even Capaldi or Tennant, actually. Defend you from attack? Well, that's gotta be Pertwee. Feature in one of your videos? It's gotta be Tom, hasn't it? Like, I'd love to have Tom on the channel. What's your favourite film? It's probably like a shit answer to some of the more film buffy people out there, but it's The Dark Knight. Chips or pizza? Why not both? Or chips on pizza, but if I had to choose, I'd go with pizza. Favourite city? Manchester, obviously. Not Manchester City, but the city of Manchester. Clint Eastwood or John Wayne? Do you know, I'm gonna have to lean more towards Clint Eastwood on that one. Do you watch The Office US? No. And I'm not really interested in it either. Apart from the 10th Doctor's arrogant speech in The End of Time Part 2, what other reasons would you argue that the 10th Doctor is overrated? Series as a whole or his character? I think his vanity is another one. The fact that he wasted a regeneration just to half regenerate and turn into himself again, which in turn caused the Meta-Crisis Doctor. It's things like that that happened throughout his era that with hindsight I look back and I just think that's just not right. I don't mind the Doctor being arrogant. A lot of the Doctors have been arrogant, but with Tennant it's a vanity sort of arrogance, and that's what I really don't like about his character. I think as well the way that the internet has gone and the fandom has gone, a lot of people typically will look at the 10th Doctor in a more romantic way with the whole thing with Rose and everything, and they'll ship those two together, and I think it's the reaction to the 10th Doctor as well that does put me off him somewhat. What's your favourite underrated Doctor Who monster / villain? I recently watched the Macra Terror, and I thought they were really, really good. But I would also say the Sea Devils as well, because obviously they've not come back yet. And I know a lot of people like them, but I really want to see those guys back, and I love them a lot. So I guess I'd have to say those two, Macra or Sea Devils. Who's at the wheel and how good does it feel? Ollie's at the wheel, feels fucking mint. Have you seen The Godfather, and if so, what did you think of it? Haven't actually watched it yet. That was going to be the next one in the Bucket List Movies series that I was talking about in part 1 or 2 or whatever part this is, I don't know. However, it never happened, and the same goes for The Sopranos as well. That's another TV show that I have yet to catch up on. Probably never will though, but The Godfather I definitely do want to watch. I have got the DVD, so when I get some spare time I'm going to stick that on. Do you own any Transformers Armada DVDs? I don't think so, but I'm old enough to remember videos, and I'm pretty sure I've got a couple of the videotapes. Series 12 of Doctor Who is going to be shit, do you agree? At this point, if it's anything like Series 11, then yeah. If they switch it up, maybe not. But right now, from the limited things that I've heard, I still don't fucking care. What are your opinions on Paradise Towers? Now, I did a review for this for Patreon, and to briefly summarise it, it's so nonsensical that it actually pisses me off. I don't mind stupid Doctor Who stories, because sometimes they can be fun. Meglos is the prime example of that. Paradise Towers, there's just so many things wrong with it, and tonally it's all over the place. I really don't fucking like that one. Do you think that Marvel are running out of ideas? In terms of the movies, because with comics they're always doing different shit anyway, but in terms of the movies, possibly. They do seem to have, and it is noted for a long time now, that there is a formula. There is a certain way that they do things. Sure, they have switched it up every now and again, but I don't necessarily think that they're running out of ideas yet, but I think they're close to it, potentially. It all depends on Endgame and the aftermath of that. Warriors of the Deep or End of Time? Just because it's so fucking hilarious, I'm gonna have to pick Warriors of the Deep. End of Time just annoys me because it should be good, but it isn't, whereas with Warriors of the Deep, it is the same as that. You know, it should be good, but it isn't. However, it's hysterical at the same time. What are your opinions on Scream of the Shalka and a potential for Richard E. Grant to revive his role through Big Finish as an Unbound Doctor with Jacobi? I haven't actually seen Scream of the Shalka, I don't think, but I've only heard good things about it. In terms of doing Big Finish and the Unbound Doctors, yeah, why not? Richard E. Grant is a great actor, and I'm sure he was a great Doctor as well, so do it, I'm up for that. What's your least favourite episode of Inside Number 9? Do you know, I really don't like Sardines, the first episode. I know a lot of people seem to really love it. I just didn't click with it. I also really didn't like Zanzibar, the opening episode of Series 4. I think it was called Zanzibar. I really didn't like that one either. Why is Tom Baker your favourite Doctor? I mean, I suppose it's a number of different things. When I picture the Doctor, or when I think about the character of the Doctor, the way that Tom Baker portrays it is exactly what I think in my head. Tom Baker is easily the most alien out of all of the Doctors, and I love that. I love the fact that there are certain episodes where he's just so weird, but to him it's normal because he's not from Earth, he's not human. And in some episodes as well, people die and Tom doesn't bat an eyelid, because to him, he's looking at the bigger picture. And obviously, considering that he's a Time Lord, death obviously doesn't faze him as much as a human. I think he's got everything. He's got something really distinctive about his performance. You know, he's commanding, his voice, his costume, everything about his mannerisms as well, his sense of humour, his alienness, his quirkiness. Even in bad stories, I think Tom really shines. Not always. I think Tom is one of those Doctors where if he does have a bad script, he sometimes can get bored of it, and it is noticeable on screen. Even when he's got a good script, sometimes he did that, to be fair. But I think whilst all of the Doctors in their own right do something with the character that I think is definitively that character, I think Tom has every single aspect. Don't get me wrong, there are other Doctors that are close in terms of that. I think Capaldi is very close to Tom. I think Patrick Troughton, with his performance, again, is very sort of similar, but they're just missing something that Tom has. I can't quite put my finger on it, and I guess it's mixed with nostalgia as well, because Tom was the first classic Doctor that I saw. What was your first classic Who story? Well, following on from what I just said, it was The Hand of Fear. Have you ever played Red Dead Redemption? Do you know, I am not that much of a gamer. I wish I was a bigger one, but no, I haven't played it. What's your view on Game of Thrones? Couldn't give a shit. Will you ever do a top 10 Only Fools and Horses episodes? Possibly. But then again, it's going to be really hard to narrow that down to 10, because I genuinely don't think that there are many bad episodes of Only Fools and Horses. There are some absolutely brilliant episodes. I think it is one of the most consistently good and consistently funny series ever. It never got unfunny. What was your reaction when Clara came back in Hellbent? Oh, I was so fucking angry. I was so fucking angry, because I was just like, Heaven Sent was phenomenal. Obviously she had like a little cameo in there, but I let that slide because it made sense within the context of that story. But then you get Hellbent and you get all this boring shit on Gallifrey when that should be the forefront of it. It just unraveled in front of me, and I was just like, oh my god, Moffat has truly lost the fucking plot, and I was genuinely raging. Would you consider doing reviews on Big Finish? I have said this before a few times. I really wish that I had more time to listen to Big Finish stuff, because I really want to, from the ones that I've heard, which is a fair few to be fair, but I just don't get enough time. And obviously there's so much Big Finish. The more and more I leave it, the more and more there is for me to find and get overwhelmed by, and just think, oh god, what do I get? Do I go for this set, or do I go for that story, or do I go for that season with this Doctor and all that sort of stuff? I wouldn't rule it out, but right now it's probably a no. Do you think Man United can break top 4? Yeah, I mean, it's so close at the top now. Who knows what could happen, but I reckon they will. The only one that I'm certain probably won't get into the top 4 is Chelsea, and I know I've just fucking jinxed it, but there you go. What are your thoughts on Revenge of the Cybermen? I think it is the weakest story of season 12, however, I do like it more now. I used to really not like it that much. I still stand by the fact that the Cybermen in that story are proper shit, but the story as a whole isn't that bad. What are your thoughts on season 12 of Doctor Who? Well, obviously that's the same season. I really like season 12. I think it's a very strong season of Doctor Who overall. Obviously it contains Gcses, which most people admit is one of, if not the best Doctor Who story ever. The Ark in Space is also a brilliant story. I really like the Sontaran Experiment as well. I really enjoy Robot, even though that is essentially a Pertwee story, but with Tom Baker in it. And then I just mentioned Revenge of the Cybermen, which isn't great, but it's not the worst story in the world. So overall, it is a fairly solid season. What is your favourite and least favourite Doctor Who episode titles / names? Haven't really thought about that too much. I honestly think the worst title for me has got to be either Arachnids in the UK, I think that's a fucking terrible title, or Doctor Who and the Silurians. The reason being is it should just be called the Silurians. I hate the fact that it's known as Doctor Who, and that really pisses me off. In terms of my favourite, I really like Something of Something. Those are the titles that I really tend to like. Has there ever been a time where you thought, you know what, fuck this, I want to quit YouTube? And if so, what caused it? If I'm being totally honest, yes, there has been a time where I've thought that, and it was not too long ago. I think things in my personal life really made me want to step away for a bit. It's okay now, but there was a time where things just weren't great. But then of course, obviously with the whole Series 11 thing, Jodie Whittaker thing, me being honest and saying I didn't like the fact that Doctor Who had cast a woman in the lead role, and people obviously had a go at me for that. Obviously my opinion isn't quite the same now, but then of course, whether or not it is, if you don't like Series 11, you still get those same people coming at you saying that you're this and you're that, and it's just horse shit. And it gets to a point where you just think, why the fuck am I doing this just to get abused by people who don't even know me and are judging me based on one thing? You're just looking at one opinion that I have, which isn't even that strong, and yet people are just having a go at me. And then of course everyone in the Doctor Who community arguing with each other, and obviously I did a couple of videos about it and things like that, and I was just like, why the fuck am I bothered? Like, why am I part of this? I don't care enough to be a part of this. So yeah, there was a few things. I just started watching Life on Mars, but when I talk to people about it, no one remembers it. So my question to you is, what do I say to people to get them to watch it? I would say it's just fucking mint. Like, just go and check it out. It's one of those series where I think you have to watch it. The fact that you said that nobody really remembers it, that's kind of strange. I thought Life on Mars was one of those series that everyone's sort of just like, oh yeah, I don't know. It's the same with any TV show or movie or whatever that you're trying to get people to watch. just try and sell it to them. Just say, oh, well, it's got this person in it and you like them in this, if that's the case. So you can say, like, for example, if they're Doctor Who fans, oh, well, John Simm's in it and obviously he was the Master. Or compare it to something else. So you can say, oh, well, if you like such and such a show, then you will like this. I suppose as well, because it's not the most accessible series unless you have the DVDs or you can get the DVDs, then it is harder to get people to watch it. What options did you take for your GCSEs? I took IT, History, which was a mistake, Graphic Design, and what else did I take? I think that was it. There might have been something else. I can't remember what else it was. So it's Christmas time. They whack out the cheese board. What's your go-to cracker from the Jacob tub? I probably wouldn't have any of it, to be honest. I'm not a massive cheese and crackers guy anymore. I'd probably just go for a bog standard square one. Do you want the Valiard's origins to be explored in the TV show's future? Potentially. I think they've already gone past it now, though, in terms of regenerations. There's no reason as to why they couldn't revisit it, though. Could be interesting. I think they should have done it with Capaldi, particularly with the "Am I a good man" thing. That would have worked perfectly. Who are some of your other favourite YouTubers and channels? I mean, in terms of the bigger YouTubers, I love True Geordie, I love the Cybermen, I love watching Full Time Devils as well, obviously as a United fan. Stephen Howson, who is on Full Time Devils, like, he's really cool, I like his stuff. In terms of in the Doctor Who community, Council of Geeks, Stu Bagfull, Ace Creeper of course, Batman March, people like that. Discovery or Orville? Haven't seen either, not really a Star Trek fan, and I've been meaning to watch the Orville. BSG or Expanse? What is BSG? British Society of Gastroenterology. Oh, it's Battlestar Galactica, isn't it? Shit. Haven't seen either. North or South? If you're talking about the country, it's got to be North. Sorry, Becky, she's Southern, but she knows. Clara or Yaz? Yaz doesn't anger me, so I'm going to have to go with Yaz. Do you like the band Gorillaz? If so, what are your top 5 songs from them? I do really like Gorillaz. I don't know about top 5, but I mean the standard ones that everybody loves, like Feel Good Inc., Dare, Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry, stuff like that. What are your thoughts on Frontier in Space and the Greatest Show in the Galaxy? Frontier in Space, I love. I think it's a really underrated story from the Pertwee era. And Greatest Show in the Galaxy, I think I said before, really good story as well. Again, underrated. Top 3 TARDIS teams. Well, I mentioned my favourite one before. That was Sarah, Harry and Tom. I really like the 7th Doctor and Ace. And I also really like the 3rd Doctor and Joe. So probably them. But then again, I do really like the 10th Doctor with Donna. I actually really like the 12th Doctor, Bill and Nardole as well. So that's more than 3, but, you know, more bang for your buck, I suppose. What would you change about The Flash if you had the chance? I think the fact that every season started to feel the same. So season 1 was great. It was all about Barry learning his powers. He's got to get faster because there's somebody who's even faster than him, who turned out to be somebody who he trusted, and yet they're actually the bad guy. Season 2, pretty much the same fucking thing happens. Season 3, pretty much the same. Now obviously they have changed the dynamic on the show and they've added more people and whatnot. I think the problem with those shows is the seasons are way too long, so you get way too many filler episodes, and I think it really draws it out, you know, because we often get Barry just moping saying, oh, I'm not fast enough. And it feels like he never saves the day himself. It never really feels like Barry is the Flash. It feels like Barry and his team save the day. And I don't really like that. It's fine in certain scenarios, but the Flash is a character in his own right and is a great character in his own right. So the fact that you've got Cisco and Iris and whoever talking in his ear, it's just not that great, especially when it keeps happening week after week after week. Thoughts on the Unbreakable trilogy? Haven't actually seen it. There's a recurring theme here, everyone. I don't watch a lot of stuff. When you started watching the classics, did you watch them in order? Like when you started on a classic Doctor, did you start from the beginning of their era, or did you just pick out random stories? I just picked out random stories. Now I have got a video coming up in the next few weeks talking about how me and a few other people started watching Doctor Who and how you kind of should watch classic Doctor Who, like how they did it, how I did it and whatnot. So for a more detailed sort of answer on this, it'll be in that video. But for now, what I'll say is, yeah, I did just sort of pick out randomly. I just picked whatever DVD was out that week. So The Hand of Fear was the first one that just happened to be out that week. Went into W.H. Smith, The only one that they had was Earthshock, so I picked that one up, and it sort of just went from there. Have you seen every episode of the classic series? Yes, I have. Do you watch the recons of the missing episodes, and what recons do you watch? I have seen the recons as well, and I've got to say to you, the recons are a really mixed bag, because some of them are fantastic, but with others you've got stories that they're visual, and you need the visuals there, and the recons just don't work, and they don't give you that. A prime example is the Macra Terror. It's one of those stories where you watch the recon and it's just nonsensical and it's dull, but you actually see it with the animation and it's brilliant. So they're really hard to watch and they're really hard to judge. Top 10 monsters you wish would return. I don't know about top 10, but the Sea Devils definitely I'd love to see back. Eldrad would be a cool one actually. I don't know how you'd actually bring Eldrad back, but that was a really interesting one from the Hand of Fear. Fuck it, bring the Zarbi back, why not? Once Endgame is done, are there any MCU movies you'll be excited to see? I'm always excited to see an MCU movie. Some more than others, but still. Has your golfing improved? Not actually played more golf since, so probably not, no. But we'll have to see. I'm probably going to end up going to Top Golf again anyway, so we'll just have to see with that one. Jam, in the cupboard or in the fridge? If it's not open, in the cupboard. If it's open, in the fridge. The Capaldi era, better or worse if Matt Smith stayed? Probably worse, because I don't think the story arc in Series 8 works for Matt Smith's Doctor. What's the oldest movie you've seen? Probably the original King Kong film from the 30s. Thoughts on the Hobbit trilogy? I really don't like the Hobbit trilogy. Really don't. What level is your Pikachu from your Pokemon Yellow playthrough now, and any thoughts on the Ryan Reynolds casting? In terms of the walkthrough that I did on my channel, which lasted like 4 episodes, I don't know. In terms of like the cartridge when I was a kid, I'm pretty sure it's like 70 or 80, around that. And in terms of Ryan Reynolds, I was just like, whoa, that's fucking genius. Get Deadpool as Pikachu. And from the trailers, it looks fucking mint. Ever thought of spray painting a boiler suit silver to go with that Cyberman helmet? All the time. I am looking at a budget way of doing a Cyberman costume. Top 5 overrated movies. I don't actually know, you know. Right, okay. The original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, they're all overrated. Those movies ain't great and they've aged appallingly. Apart from that, I can't actually think of any more right now, but I'm sure I will soon. Worst story from each Doctor. Right, well, it's the Web Planet. Troughton is probably something like the Underwater Menace or something. Pertwee, not a fan of. Monsters of Peladon. I don't know if that's his worst one though. The Mutants is pretty bad actually. For Tom, it's either Underworld or The Leisure Hive. Davison is Warriors of the Deep. For Colin, it's Time Lash. For McCoy, probably Time and the Rani. We'll skip McGann. For Christopher Eccleston, it's probably The Long Game. Tennant, probably New Earth. Crimson Horror for Matt Smith. Hellbent for Capaldi. And then probably Arachnids in the UK. Or It Takes You Away for Jodie. This seems like a video in itself, but I shall ask anyway. Rank all series and seasons of Doctor Who. It'd be interesting to see how you think of them both together in a pool. That is a video in itself. Like, that is too big to do right now. But that is definitely an interesting one. I was at some point planning on doing ranking classic Doctor Who, but an idea of doing all of Doctor Who so far, that's quite cool as well, so I'll probably do both of those at some point. Frontier in Space was my first ever classic story. What's your opinion on it, and do you think the Draconians should return? Well, I mentioned before, I love it, and I think it's incredibly underrated. In terms of should the Draconians return, if there's a good enough story for them, yeah, why not? What are your views on the Edge of Destruction? Did you like it or hate it? I didn't like it or hate it. It's one of those very middle of the road stories for me. Thoughts on the Sontaran story on the dwarf planet Ceres? I believe that's a big finish. Possibly with the first Doctor actually, if I remember rightly. I haven't heard it though, so I can't really say. I'm sure it's great. Would you even say no to a salami sandwich? The Mask of Mandragora, actually, that's a pretty shite Tom story. But I actually quite like salami, so no, I wouldn't say no to a salami sandwich. Fave series of classic Doctor Who, season 13. I love Tom's second season. I wouldn't say there's a flat out terrible story in there whatsoever. What do you think of season 19 as a whole? I got the Blu-ray box set for Christmas, enjoyed it, and Davison is my second favourite Doctor. I really like season 19. I think it's a really underrated season. Obviously people just go and look at Earthshock, which is phenomenal. I mean, it has its bad points as well, like Time Flight. I don't really like Castrovalva. Thought of Doomsday is a bit of a mixed bag, but the rest of the season I think is really good. I really enjoy the Visitation, and I love Kinder as well, and Earthshock is Earthshock, so it is a bit of a mixed bag. but it's also underrated. Favourite one-time villain for new and classic Who? Well, for classic, it's got to be Sutekh from Pyramids of Mars. I think that was a fantastic villain. In terms of new Who, I mean, they always fucking return. So I don't really know. Vashta Narada, they were really cool. It's my favourite Tennant story, so we'll go with that. Would you like to see the return of the Master's TARDIS? Oh yeah, definitely. I love the Master's TARDIS. Thoughts on these superheroes and villains? Saint Walker. Don't think I actually know who that is, so I can't really say. Larfleeze? I think I pronounced that right. Again, don't really know. Green Lantern, I absolutely love. I think is a really, really great and imaginative superhero. Jon Stewart is my favourite one, in case anyone was wondering. Green Arrow, I fucking love Green Arrow. Always have. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the archery side of things, because I do quite like archery. Mr. Freeze is a villain that desperately needed to be played by Patrick Stewart and not Arnold Schwarzenegger. In the comics and in, obviously, Batman the Animated Series, Mr. Freeze is a bloody good villain. I love Mr. Freeze. Mysterio, I think, is a really cool Spider-Man villain, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Jake Gyllenhaal as him in Far From Home. Nearly said Homecoming, but I've got it right. Spider-Man Noir, again, a really cool idea. I love the design as well. And in the, I want to say Shattered Dimensions, but I can't remember if that's the name of the game or not. But the one where you can play as 4 different Spider-Men, and Noir's one of them. Awesome. Two-Face is good, but a mixed bag. It depends what you're watching. And the Penguin. Not one of my favourite Batman villains, however, I do like him. If you could choose any Doctor to work under a different showrunner, which Doctor and showrunner pairing would you choose? I would love to have seen Capaldi in the Hinchcliffe Bob Holmes era. Oh my god. Undisputed, one of the best Doctors ever if you do that. Capaldi really deserved so much better and so much more. And I think if you gave that Doctor to that pairing, especially with the darker elements of that Doctor as well, the results are going to be golden. Do you think that a Stormtrooper movie focusing on the major events in the Star Wars saga from their perspective could work? And would you focus on one Stormtrooper or a variety of them throughout the film? I've actually wanted this for a while. If anybody remembers, in Star Wars Battlefront 2, not the newer one, the one from like 2005, 6, whatever it was, there was a story mode, and it was basically that, where you're from the perspective of the 501st Legion going through, you know, the rise of the Empire and the fall of the Republic and what they thought about it and whether they questioned themselves or not. It was a really great campaign, but it was really short. So if they expanded that into a movie, oh, that could be brilliant, especially if you start from like Attack of the Clones and you go through to like A New Hope. Do you prefer Tom's multicolored scarf or his burgundy one from season 18? I mean, Tom had more than just 2 scarves, so it is hard to choose, you know, because there's so many different variants of the multicolored scarf as well. What I will say is, I do love them all. I genuinely do. It is hard for me to pick. I think when it comes to Tom's scarves, I kind of think of the outfit that goes with it as well. I mean, I love the season 18 outfit. I think it's gorgeous. It's so regal and majestic, and to be honest, it does look like a costume, but I don't give a fuck because it's so beautiful. But then all of his other costumes are great as well. I suppose the multicolored one I would edge towards a bit more, purely because it appeared more, but that's literally the only reason why. I can't separate them otherwise. Any updates on Life from Mars? Oh yeah, I forgot about that shit. Not right now, but thank you for reminding me to get back on it. Would you consider bringing back some of your old series, such as Unpopular Opinions, How to Fix, or Bucket List Movies? Yeah, all of them, definitely. I'm always thinking of new ideas and new things to do with old ideas all the time, so hopefully, at some point, those things will come back. Probably not in the same way. Bucket list movies or just movie reviews in general, I have an idea for. How to Fix, I'm tempted to do another one on Doctor Who. There's a few other series and movies and franchises that I want to do that on. And in terms of Unpopular Opinions, I'm fucking full of them. Time on Our Hands or Sleepless in Peckham. In terms of the quality of the episode, I've got to say Time on Our Hands, but I do really like Sleepless in Peckham as well. Cake or pie? Depends what sort of pie, but I am more of a savoury fella, so I'm going to go with pie. Provided it's like meat pie, not like apple pie. Top 4. I'm assuming you mean the Premier League. It's City or Liverpool. Tottenham United, I think. Relegated, I mean, Huddersfield are pretty much gone, unfortunately, as a Fulham. Sorry, Becky, she's a Fulham fan. And then after that, Cardiff, maybe. Any underrated classic episodes you'd recommend? I mean, I've mentioned a few throughout this entire Q&A. I mean, Frontier in Space, Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Season 18 as a whole, I think, is underrated, as is Season 19. Claws of Axos is another one that I think is really underrated. Do you like fishing or angling? Haven't actually been, but I would love to go. Would you do a video on the best and worst Red Dwarf episodes? I'd need to do a marathon of it again before I did anything like that, because I genuinely do love Red Dwarf. There are so many funny moments throughout that series. So maybe at some point, yeah. What if Jodie was actually hot? I wouldn't say that she's unattractive, but her attractiveness or lack of attractiveness, depending on who you are, isn't really the problem. It's the fact that she's been given shit scripts and she's still doing fuck all with them. So, have you watched Mission to the Unknown, and what do you think of the remake? I didn't even know that the remake was actually out yet. I'm so excited to see that. And from what I can see, guys, that appears to be the last question. So, thank fuck this is over, because this has taken a hell of a lot longer than I wanted it to. But having said that, I do appreciate all of you guys who sent in questions. I genuinely do love doing these things. It's just this one, I did not anticipate how many people would actually send in questions. So it has been stressful to get this out, but it is now. This is, you know, the last part. It's done, finally. I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying this to myself. I'm trying to convince myself that it's over. But thank you to every single person who not only sent in a question, but has been watching my channel from day one to today, whatever it is. Just thank you so much. Like, I never expected any of this. Like, these last, well, just over 2 years now have been mental. When I first started, people were telling me it's a waste of time, it's this, it's that. Whereas now I'm just like, I've built up a community of people who I think are really good. I've never really had too many knobheads, and any of those knobheads have fucked off subsequently anyway. Because of this channel, I've been in contact with different people from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, that I never thought I would speak to, and I've made internet friends, I suppose. Some of the people who I watched before I even started this channel know of my existence and have acknowledged me as well, and I think that's awesome as well, and it's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for absolutely everything. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon links are in the description, as always, and until next time, guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye.